69. Pledge allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations, so that those that make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
I'd also like to take a moment to offer a moment of silence for those who died at the Capitol in Washington. Thank you. Mr. Ryan?
Okay, thank you. The council's agenda has two items on it. One is resolution authorizing the disposition of records from the Special Events Office. And number two is a resolution authorizing the disposition of records from the City Clerk's Office. As always, these are in compliance with the Pennsylvania Historical and Museum Commission requirements for records destruction. Those are the only two items on council's agenda, and there are no items on the mayor's agenda.
Any questions on the resolutions?
Okay, I'm sorry, I thought one of the council members was going to propose them.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay. Okay, there are two new items. Both of them are ordinances. And the first one is an ordinance amending section 12-27 of Article 2 of Chapter 12 of the Wilkes-Barre City Code of Ordinances entitled Garbage and Refuse. Whereas it is a desire and intention of the City Council to pass legislation within the City of Wilkes-Barre by amending section 12-27 of Article 2 of Chapter 12 of the Wilkes-Barre Code of Ordinances, now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the City Council of the City of Wilkes-Barre that section 12-27 of Article 2 of Chapter 12 entitled Garbage and Refuse is hereby amended as follows. Chapter 12, Garbage and Refuse, Article 2, Litter and Disposal, Section 12-27, the fee for recyclable newsprint, commingled recyclable aluminum cans, and recyclable ferrous containers. The annual fee for collection of recyclable newsprint, commingled recyclable aluminum cans, and recyclable ferrous containers shall be $50. Severability. The provisions of this ordinance are severable. If any part of this ordinance is declared to be unconstitutional, illegal, or invalid, the validity of the remaining provisions shall be unaffected thereby. It is the intention of the Council of the City of Wilkes-Barre that this ordinance would have been adopted had such unconstitutional, illegal, or invalid part not been included. Repealer. All ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent herewith be and the same are hereby repealed. All ordinances not specifically amended hereby remain in full force and effect. This ordinance shall become effective 10 days after final passage by the Council of the City of Wilkes-Barre. Thank you. Next is an ordinance also amending Chapter 30 of the Wilkes-Barre City Code of Ordinances entitled Utilities. Whereas it is a desire and intention of the City Council to pass legislation within the City of Wilkes-Barre by amending Chapter 30 of the Wilkes-Barre Code of Ordinances, now therefore be it ordained and enacted by the City Council of the City of Wilkes-Barre that Chapter 30 entitled Utilities is hereby amended as follows. Chapter 30 Utilities, Article 2 Sewers, Section 30-19 Annual Rental and Maintenance Fee for persons within city. Subparagraph B, residential and small unmetered commercial establishments. The annual sewer rental and maintenance fee for all residential properties, whether metered and small unmetered commercial establishments which are located within the legal boundaries of the city shall be computed on a flat rate basis at the following rates. Under classification, average domestic home, under annual rent, $50. First unit and multiple unit dwelling, $50. Each additional unit and multiple unit dwelling, $50. Small commercial establishments, $50. Flat rate customers will be given the option at the time of annual billing of paying the annual rent in full, less a discount of 3% if payment is received no later than 30 days from the mailing date. From 30 days through 60 days of mailing, bills shall be paid at face value. Bills paid after 60 days of mailing shall be subject to 6% penalty plus interest at a rate of 1% per month, not to exceed a maximum of 12%, and all other fees and costs relative to collection of the aforementioned shall be paid by the customer. Non-residential and/or commercial metered properties, the annual sewer rental and maintenance fee in respect for all non-residential properties served by a metered water supply shall be computed on the basis of gallonage of water usage per quarter year at the following rates. First 15,000 gallons per quarter, per 1,000 gallons, 75 cents. Next, 185,000 gallon per quarter, per 1,000 gallons, 55 cents. Next, 1,800,000 gallons per quarter, per 1,000 gallons, 40 cents. Next, 6 million gallon per quarter, per 1,000 gallons, 28 cents. All 8,000 gallons per quarter, per 1,000 gallons, 0.15. Minimum annual charge, $50. Severability, the provisions of this ordinance are severable if any part of this ordinance is declared to be unconstitutional, illegal, or invalid. The validity of the remaining provisions shall be unaffected thereby. It is the intention of the Council of the City of Wilkes-Barre that this ordinance would have been adopted had such unconstitutional, illegal, or invalid part not been included. Repealer, all ordinances or parts of ordinances inconsistent herewith be and the same are hereby repealed. All ordinances not specifically amended hereby remain in full force and effect. And as is standard, this ordinance shall become effective 10 days after final passage by the Council of the City of Wilkes-Barre. Thank you.
Any comment?
Chairman, I have a comment, please. I'm not exactly sure why we're voting to reduce the recycling and sewer fees after voting 3-2 at our last regular session to amend the fees to $75 for each of these fees. There was considerable discussion about the increased cost, especially when it comes to recycling, that the city is now paying. The fees have not been adjusted for quite some time, and the condition of our city sewer system and the maintenance fees that we are incurring to maintain that system. I'm just curious if we came up with some unanticipated revenue that we're not aware of since the last meeting, or if there's been some adjustments to the budget which would allow us to return those fees to the previous schedule. Just curious. I mean, we just voted on this at our last session, and now we're turning around and decreasing the fees back to what they were, despite all the discussion that we've had about the increased cost. And of course, that doesn't include our concerns about the impact on the 2021 budget.
So when we originally voted to increase fees, I had expressed concerns with increasing fees in the middle of the pandemic when we have record unemployment and people out of work. But I voted to increase those fees on the premise that there would be cuts elsewhere in the budget. So since council's amendments have been vetoed, I feel it's not fair to the residents to simply raise a fee without any other changes being made in the budget. So that's why I introduced ordinances to lower the fees back down to 50.
I understand that part. I'm just concerned about what the impact it's going to have on the operating budget for 2021. We do an awful lot for $50 in a recycling fee. For $1 a week, we pick up just about anything and everything that people put out at the curb 52 weeks a year. Whether it's recycling, whether it's Christmas trees, whether it's yard waste, whatever it is. And I know that the mayor, the administration has said that we can't continue doing that at this particular rate. And I know that there was a 3-2 vote to raise the fees, as you just alluded to $75. I'm just concerned about the bottom line impact that this is going to have on the 2021 budget and, of course, services to our residents. So I just wanted to make that clear that those are my concerns.
So because the mayor vetoed the budget, this is why we're amending the recycling and sewer bill? Because it was vetoed?
Well, we proposed increasing the fees coupled with other changes in the budget. So,
Okay, being that those changes didn't happen, we're going this way.
correct.
We were just down this road, and I thought council agreed, but as Bill said, 3-2, bringing this back up just seems like deja vu to me. I don't quite get it, but I see what you're saying.
Any other comments? Okay. Presentation by council members. Councilman Belusco.
Nothing today, Stone.
Thank you. Councilman Barrett.
I know the mayor and Mr. McCormick that we are going to be working, that the state is going to be working on Scott Street, hopefully in the spring. But I don't know what it's going to look like come spring. I don't know if you've been up that way lately or not, but it is literally down to the bricks and falling apart, as are a couple of the other state roads in the city. I know there's one up in your area as well, Mrs. McBride, but I don't know what we do in the meantime. I mean, it's getting to the point that even patching it is probably almost hopeless. But I'm just asking that we do whatever we can in the interim, or at least maybe ask the state to do whatever they can in the interim. If they have a better way of patching, I don't know it. But it's a very busy road, as you know, and it's literally crumbling. And it's January. By the time March comes around, it's probably going to be impassable. So maybe Butch can take a close look or make a few calls, depend on that, and see if we come up with a way of either expediting. I know they're not going to rebuild the road during the winter, but or come up with some way of making it at least passable through the rest of the winter. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Councilman Marconi.
I do, just two for the administration. Potholes, I know everyone's concerned about them, and I know the city's been working very hard, trying to get them filled. Just Wilkes-Barre Boulevard and Washington Street, please, Charlie. If you could just have Butch take a look at that. They were just filled, I don't know, maybe 3-4 days ago, but it's kind of rough again there. I'd appreciate that. And one other question, our new ambulance, I read in the paper that we were getting a new ambulance. I was just wondering if it was delivered yet, and if it was, what station is it at?
Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, Mr. Marconi, it was delivered approximately 2 weeks ago. We went through certification to make sure that it was to be able to be used. It was certified. We've been using it for 2 weeks now.
Thank you, sir.
Tony, if I may. Mayor, so we are actively filling potholes? Because I asked for it last meeting.
Yeah,
and
Mike,
we weren't
actually-
doing it at that time?
Actually, yesterday, we filled the pothole on the corner of Wood Street and South Main Street.
Okay, yeah, I saw that one was done, you're right.
We've had people out filling potholes. We've actually, I think I've mentioned to you that any given day, we have 8 to 10 DPW people out, and for various health reasons. We've actually been utilizing outside help to help us patch the potholes. Problem is the plants that manufacture the hard asphalt are no longer working, okay? So we try to do the best we can with the material that we can use. Mr. Brooks, in your area, we had a terrible road on High Street. And I think I mentioned to you, a lot of the potholes that we're seeing are what we call paved cuts. They're actually made by utility companies, and they're not repaired properly. So what happens is, we go over them with the plow or something, and it comes up, and now you have a major pothole. We met with, Mr. Brooks, I don't know if you want me to get into this, but I'll be happy to do that. We met with some utility companies, and we gave them the ultimatum, they have to fix it, or we're not going to allow the contractors to work in the city. We're at that stage now. High Street is being repatched until this coming summer, and we're going to repave that curb to curb, okay? And that's because of the utility company, and they're back there now working every day on it. It's tough because, like I said, we don't have the manpower, and also we're trying to use outside companies as best we can, but they don't have the availability of putting in a nice hot patch on there. They're using cold patch and other things. So it's a shame because it's a time of year, and every year we go through this. We went through it last year, same thing. Do the best we can, give us a list, and we'll try and send people out on it. But yeah, we are addressing it. We've had people out every day this week on potholes. Charlie, what was the last street we had that group on? There was a street that was a real problem up in the north end. Anyway, we're sending this company out to do the best we can, but all five of your districts have major issues. A lot of them are state roads. And people don't realize, Cary Avenue and Northampton Street, and Beth, we talked to you about that, and PennDOT's going to be paving Northampton Street. I don't have the power to say, do it now. It's going to get done, but a lot of these problematic roads are state roads. They're not city roads. So we do the best we can to patch them. Not an answer you want to hear, but I'm just trying to tell you the situation, Bill, in response to your question. Okay? Keep reporting and we'll do the best we can.
Thank you, Mayor. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Marconi. Councilwoman McBride?
Yeah, more potholes. I'll be sending a list over to you, Charlie, but in the meantime, South Empire Street in particular is in really rough shape. I'd say that's probably the worst one that I could think of right now. But like I said, I'll be sending you another list. Thank you.
Thank you. And for me, I want to thank the mayor for meeting with Vice Chairwoman McBride and all the updates as we spoke about with High Street and the continuing following up with the Railroad Authority with the county to fix the tracks, for them to fix the tracks at the bottom of Parish Street. I thank you for that as well. Okay, that's done with the work session. We'll move into the regular voting session. This is the time when the public can call in. Oh, 1 second. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Almighty and everlasting God, who presides over all things in heaven and earth, come and preside over these deliberations, so that those that make the decisions may be guided by your wisdom.
Thank you. This is the January 14th regular voting session for Wilkes-Barre City Council. I welcome everyone in attendance and also those who are watching us online. People can call in at this time if they have any comments on, oh, I'm sorry.
Roll call.
It's been a
Okay.
couple of years. Sorry.
Mr. Barrett,
Here.
Mr. Belusko,
Here?
Mr. Marconi,
Here.
Mrs. Gilbert McBride,
Present.
Mr. Brooks.
Here.
Also in attendance tonight is Mayor George C. Brown, Controller Darren Snyder, Administrator Charles McCormick, City Attorney Tim Henry, IT Director Frank Hirschberger, Assistant City Clerk Catherine Payne, Administrative Assistant Lisa Sanfilippo.
Thank you. If there are calls from the public concerning pending legislation, that is items on the agenda, you may call in now.
Yeah, this is Bob Kalabowski. I'm just a little bit confused because I'm a little slow. But do I have to wait till the public comment section to talk? Because I don't have nothing to say about what's on the, what you're talking about now. Do I have to wait to the end of the meeting?
Yes.
Okay, I'll call back later. Thank you.
And for the record, there are no emails received on agenda items today. There were none.
Thank you, Mr. Ryan. Okay, we'll move into the consent agenda, resolution and ordinances. Mr. Ryan?
Right. Okay, the first item is consent agenda resolutions. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion.
Bill?
Mr. Barrett?
Second.
Mr. Marconi?
Mr. Barrett?
Yes.
Mr. Beluska?
Yes?
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride?
Yes.
And Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Motion passes. Next is adoption of the minutes of authorities, boards, or commissions. Oh, you did make it part of the consent? Okay. All right. That's all taken care of. So next, we will go to the new ordinances proposed. First one is relative to an annual fee for recyclables of $50. Motion, second, and vote.
Motion?
Second. Second.
Second, John. Mr. Barrett.
No.
Mr. Beluska.
No?
Mr. Marconi.
Yes.
And Mrs. McBride.
Yes.
And Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Motion fails for lack of a majority. Pardon?
3 yeas.
Isn't, Mr. Henry, isn't it 4 that are needed for? Not at this point. Oh, okay. All right. Motion passes. My mistake. Okay, the minutes of authorities are, sorry. New items also relative to an online sewer fee of $50. Mr. Barrett, sorry, motion second, and vote, please.
Motion.
John?
Second?
Second? Okay, Mr. Barrett,
No.
Mr. Beluska,
No?
Mr. Marconi?
Yes.
Mrs. McBride,
Yes.
Mr. Brooks.
Yes.
Motion passes also. Thank you.
Council presentations again. Anyone have anything else to add? Mr. Barrett? Mr.
Nope.
Briscoe? Now the public can call in for public discussion.
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Bob Kalabowski. I'm calling from Wilkes-Barre in my truck. A few things I'd like to touch on tonight. Number one, something's been brought to my attention, and I'm glad that the city controller is there. And could you hear me, Mr. Snyder? Could he hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I would like you to look into, up at the city clerk's office, it's been brought to my attention that they've been collecting overtime, and I want you to find out if they're allowed to do that, and if not, if city funds were taken and they weren't supposed to get that, I'd like you to go to law enforcement, maybe call the district attorney's office, if they took that money somehow, if it was illegal, because I understand that nobody up there should be getting overtime. And if it is, if city funds were misappropriated, I want something done about it criminally, if there was some kind of criminality, unless there's a good excuse for it. Also, I want Mr. Ryan reprimanded for about 2 meetings ago when he went on and on and on. Actually went over 5 minutes on his political speech that he gave. I don't, you know, he cracks down on everybody by the second, but yet he was able to ramble on for an extended period of time. And I was quite offended by it because he's not following his own rules. And also, I would like to ask Mr. Brooks and Ms. Gilbert to tell us what you did with all that money you got for your first term, where all that money went that you took for the buyouts, what charities you gave it to. And also, I'm wondering, is there any chance that you are going to give up what you're taking? I think it's people in the public are outraged. I mean, it's nice that Ms. Gilbert gave up $12,000, but it's just not fair to work part-time and get that type of money. I mean, Ms. Gilbert cost us for last year about $42,000, and it's nothing against her personally. This is the issue. And also you, Tony, taking the buyout, and especially Mike there, it's Belusco. You know, he has one of the most successful businesses in South Wilkes-Barre, but yet he's making the city taxpayers pay his health care. It's outrageous. And that's not just my opinion, it's other people's opinions. And also, Mr. Snyder, if you could hear me, Mr. Barrett is not in the pension system. I'd like to see what you have, if you could find out how do we get the rest of these people out of this pension system. As I brought up at the last couple council meetings, with all the other clowns that we have there that use their part-time service towards a full-time pension are costing us $180,000 a year, which I think it's absolutely outrageous. That when the other city employees, how long they have to work, how many years of service, 20, 25, 30 years, and some of them council people who went on to be mayor and controller are able to get better pensions. And also, I'd like Mr. Brooks to go down to Public Works tomorrow and find out how many part-time employees are there. And if the mayor's listening, I'd like to get the mayor involved too. Go down there. If we have people there that are working part-time, I want them to get the same health care that Beth Gilbert and her family are getting, the buyout Mr. Brooks is getting, and Mr. Belusco. It's absolutely outrageous. And the other thing I'd like to close on is I want to sit and I'll watch the TV in a minute. I want you to explain in detail how you come up with that budget that gave us $1 million surplus. And, you know, like I said, I'm not in favor of raising any fees for anybody, but we are in a serious situation with the loss of revenue that went on because of this pandemic. So I think I'm going to sit down now and see what you're going to answer, if you ever do answer. And I definitely want something, definitely, Mr. Snyder, to do something about if this was done illegal in the city clerk's office by taking that overtime. And if somebody broke the law, I want them arrested and prosecuted. If it's just some kind of oversight, no problem. If it's criminal, I want somebody prosecuted. Does anybody want to ask me a question before I hang up and go cruise around in my truck?
Thank you, Mr. Galabowski. On the first point, I believe that you're covered under the collective bargaining agreement for the City Hall Union and are entitled to it. Correct? Right? Ms. Ryan? On the other questions about contributions, Mr. Galabowski can always go to my Facebook council page and see them line item there. I don't know what to do about the part-time employees at DPW. Maybe I can get him the answer to that question. Anyone else have any comments?
He alluded to the fact that I'm taking a pension and I'm not, so I just want to clarify that.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, may I, please?
Yes.
Also, too, Bob, I just want to let you know, too, that I'm not taking the pension either, as well, just to clarify that.
Okay. Is there another call?
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
John Sahofsky, Alder Plain.
Go ahead.
Okay. First, I just want to say something about the gaming grants. I see that you approved the Shine grant for an LSA grant. First thing, I think that that goes to Wilkes, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, but that grant goes to Wilkes. So first thing, I think that Wilkes' name should be in the grant when you vote on that, just so it shows that Wilkes is figuring out another way to get those LSA grants to go to them. And secondly, on that grant, that really should be, like I said this last year about the Penguins grant that they were going for their hockey, their outdoor hockey rink, or I forget exactly what it was. But that's more of a county program than a city program. That's not a program that's just set up for the city of Wilkes-Barre. That's set up for Luzerne County. So that should be a grant that should really go through Luzerne County and shouldn't be competing with the other grants that Wilkes-Barre needs. But that's just another way Wilkes figures out how to get into our grants and use them. And I just have a comment about the call-in system that you guys have. I don't know if you guys are aware of how county council does it, but county council, when you call in, you could listen to the meeting before you call, instead of, like, I have to use 2 devices to make sure that I could hear, follow the meeting and stay on hold. So I don't know if you guys could look into doing what county council does and get some kind of system where you could listen to the meeting while you're on hold. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sikowski. Any comments? In reference to him not hearing the meeting, I don't understand what he was getting at. Is he saying that you have to watch it on TV and call and you don't?
I guess what he's saying is, instead of looking at it like on a phone or a laptop, that you could actually use your phone and listen. I'm thinking that's what he's saying.
Well, that's the first comment we had about that. I mean, I think our system's working well. If you see an improvement, let us know. I haven't watched the county council meeting. Any other calls coming in?
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Steve McCarskey from the Citizens Voice. I was wondering if the mayor could, if we could get his reaction to council's votes on the sewage and recycling fees, and also if you could state if his veto stands and what this will mean for the 2021 budget.
Do you want to respond, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pekarsky.
Yeah, Steve, I'm hoping I heard both your questions properly. My opinion of the newest resolution that was passed, reducing it back to $50. I think everyone knows the feeling that I have, and my object tonight was not to get up and debate back and forth, okay? I explained to you that we have a loss of revenue. I explained to you that originally we asked for $50 and we were able to go down to $85. That still would have created a loss for us from what I was looking for. Now going down to $75, it still would have been less than I was looking for. Down to $50 now, yeah, it's going to create a problem for us. I said this to every council member that it's going to be a situation where we won't have income eating outgo. Okay, so that's the best way that I could explain that. Tony, what was the other question that Steve had about the veto?
He says it's in
Yeah, the current budget veto, you're letting that, you vetoed
Yeah,
it.
the
Right.
veto that we did last week,
Right.
yeah, that stood.
Right.
This, what you put through tonight was the changes to that was put through a week or so ago.
Correct.
So the veto stands, but the difference from what I understand you did tonight was you're pushing the rates back to $50. Everything else goes back to my old original budget.
Right.
Meaning that we won't be cutting 200,000 out of workers' comp, we won't be cutting 200,000 out of overtime. And by the way, I just want the public to understand that overtime was spread out through all the departments. It wasn't one department, it wasn't DPW, it wasn't police, it wasn't fire. It was spread out. So the recent snowstorm we had with 18 inches, and then we had the ice storm, and then we had the possibility of flooding in South Wilkes-Barre. That was all, a lot of it was paid for by overtime, because we've had 8 to 10 people out in DPW, as I keep saying. That was a big dollar amount that we had to expend for that. So we can't afford to cut overtime as you had requested, okay? So I'm not gonna keep going back and forth. I've laid out my plan, I've laid out my concerns. Naturally, I'm gonna do the best I can as the mayor to meet the needs of the residents. And that's where I'll leave it. I'll do the best I can.
Mayor, does this, now this, two new ordinances, this subject of maybe our residents to cutting of city services? Is it possible now or more likely? Is there anything you could say off the top of your head?
Mike, I prefer, if you don't mind, I don't want to get into that right now because I made a reference to that if we don't have income eating outgo, we have to make some changes as far as either services, manpower, and so forth. I have to sit down now with my staff and we have to look at exactly how bad this is going to hurt our income, okay? We're looking at some ways of saving some costs. We are. It's not going to equal the $1 million or the $750,000 we're losing because of this. There's no way I can make that up. So we're looking at some cost savings methods. But as a final plan to let you know what's going to happen, that's going to have to, because this is new as of tonight. I mean, as of yesterday, we were still getting the $75. Now it's $50. I had to come up with a plan. It's not going to be something I'd like to do. So, Mike, respectfully to you and other council members, I don't have a hard answer to you.
I understand. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other calls? Okay, any other comments for the good of the order? Very well. All right, resolution, motion to adjourn? I didn't hit the gavel yet. Hello?
Please state your name and where you're calling from.
Kathy, Bob Kalaboski, would you ask the council to answer my question on how they come up with those budget figures?
Is that all, Mr. Kalaboski?
Would you ask the council to answer my question on how they come up with those budget figures?
I think that's all. We're good. Any comments? Okay. Motion to adjourn?